Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing well. This is Dave Martinez, and I want to do a follow-up video from our PD day. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the workshop I led, which was on blended learning for the Topic Toolbox. And this is for those of you who maybe want a refresher on why you may want to use topics for your blended learning experiences, or for those of you who didn't get a chance to come and visit my workshop and may want to follow up with that. So let's go and take a look at what kind of is a topic toolbox and why would you actually want to use that. First thing we want to look at is what is essentially a topic toolbox. Okay, what a topic toolbox is essentially an interactive portal, and it's a place for both your students as well as yourself kind of can access and engage your instructional tools. So if we think back to our kind of introduction to educational technology that Kimmy ended up presenting for us, looking at our metaphor of our superheroes and our sidekicks. You as the instructor are the superhero in the classroom, technology is your sidekick. And through that process, we know that there's three different levels of kind of digital tools you'll be engaging with. One's the secret layer, where we have all access to that. All of our resources, our digital tools, our materials as an entire faculty, and all of the things that are kind of at our disposal. And then we have a toolbox, and those are the types of tools that we bring with us, let's say kind of to our classroom, or we keep in storage, the things that we generally do use but may not use every day. And then go through and look at our utility belt, and those are the things we're using on the daily. What Topics presents to us is essentially a place to kind of store, share, and interact with those digital tools. It's building and focusing on that middle section, that toolbox. And when we think about a toolbox, we use it to house multiple tools, things like hammers, saws, screwdrivers, and we want to use those tools then for a specific function. But when we're not using them, we need a place to organize them and put it away. That's the whole idea about using topics. So let's take a look about what would create our topic toolbox. So for our kind of topic toolbox that we're going to be using in this digital portal, there's really 5 sections that I've been able to use it for with my classroom to really be able to get some sort of effective result. The first thing is kind of our left-hand top corner is our tool organizer. So if we think about all of the different kind of digital tools we have out there, things like Google Suite, which is G Suite, which is Docs, Slides, Forms, things like Albert, where we can go through and provide SAT and AP questions, resources, let's say like Pear Deck, which we've been looking at, or Flipgrid. This is a place to be able to organize that all into one place so students have a quick access to it. The second kind of function of our toolbox is a download database. And this is a place for us to be able to put all of our kind of online and print resources for our unit in one place. Now, you can upload them individually to assignments, and you can actually import assignments from year to year. But one of the things that I started to realize is I tend not to. And one of the reasons why I don't import my assignments for year to year is there's just too much that I have to change for each of those individual assignments for it to be worthwhile. I always end up having to change the dates and shifting those then for the different classes that we meet on our schedule. And so it just really became impractical. It almost became quicker for me to just upload them as a new assignment. And so one of the things that I found is I'm continually attaching those digital resources with one place. The advantage of putting your digital resources in your topic is you can actually import topics from year to year. And those are one of the other videos that I have attached to this email or this kind of catalog playlist is how to actually import from one year to the next. I can show you how to do that there. But in storing it all in your topics, when you import it from year to year, you don't run into the same issues that you deal with assignments, but you still have those digital resources in one collective place. The third thing is this kind of bottom right-hand corner is an interactive canvas. If I think about my whiteboard, I can use it for a lot of different functions, whether I want to write notes on the board, whether I want to, let's say, project onto it and kind of annotate out a document that I have my students collaborate. There's a lot of different functions that we can think through it. What we then kind of have with topics is another place to extend that. And this is the place where I want to put my videos, I want to put my images, if I want to put text for assignments, or even embed other types of apps as a part of that, things like Flipgrid or for things from YouTube, it really becomes that place. So it's interactive. So it's not just a place to kind of display information, although it can be. The middle one then is a feedback studio, and this is something that I've started to grow and develop a little bit more. But I tend to find that with my classes, there are consistent trends across the board that they end up running into as an issue. And so in providing a feedback studio, this is a place where I can upload, let's say, an example of a student paper that I think is really well done. And this is where I can then help model for them for future assignments. So this is the level of expectation, let's say, for an annotation, or this is what a really effective paragraph looks like. So it's a great place to model that work and highlight student work. Similar to kind of how we place students' work on our walls, to really kind of showcase some of those successes or those standards. It's a place for there. It's also a great place for rubrics as well. And the last one is kind of a virtual office. And this is essentially trying to minimize having to write the same thing over and over again, if it's in an email or another place, but having a place for students to ask questions in one spot, and then being able to go through and get that kind of response from me, the instructor, but having others be able to see that, which is not something we always have accessible for in a email format. So let's go ahead and dive on in, and let's look at an example of what this looks like for a Topic Toolbox that's fully fleshed out. So if we go ahead and look on this left-hand side, and it says Topic Toolbox example, I'm going to show you one of my examples from my AP Literature course, and this is on our Tragedy of Hamlet unit. So I have my title at the top, and I have some sort of kind of thematic biblical verse that helps kind of give a framework for them to understand and reflect what are the ideas being explored in our literature, and then what does this mean to us in our larger theological framework. What I then kind of incorporate here is my unit overview. I'll generally give a quick summary of what perhaps something entails with the plot or key ideas we're going to touch on, and then I'll dive into my instructional objectives and my CISOs as I kind of continue to flesh out those ideas. Now, obviously, it's not all my instructional objectives for every single assignment, but I like to highlight a couple key ones. One, to kind of help my students know what's down the line, but two, to give them something to anticipate, so that as they're looking for and framing their information, they have some sort of structure or organization to place some of that in the topic. This is my toolbox. So 3 of kind of the big apps that I end up using or digital tools is Flipgrid, Albert.io, and then conflict.org. I like to include the assignments listed here, and this is a great reminder for me to go through and kind of key in, okay, these are the things and resources that I'm including in the unit. So that way I can quickly refer back to it. And then it's also a good place to key in for the students to know, okay, did I miss an assignment? Do I need to go back and search under previous assignments to find something if I was absent or missing? I like to drop in a unit calendar. Mostly this is copy and paste. And most of these resources that I have are things that I've had in other places that all I'm doing is copying and pasting and embedding directly in. So it's not about reinventing the wheel as much as it's taking the work that you've already produced and placing it back into your text. This is where I have my download database. So you have different resources that come through and my students can download. And you can even put subheadings here. So I have framing resources, major assignments, Hamlet homework questions to kind of help organize that information. Here's kind of an example of something that my students worked with on board. So I would norm it in class and then take that info, take a picture, and slap it up. So really, again, it's not about trying to go through and do extra work as much as it's taking the resources you already have and put it in place. Okay, I'm sure from the other PDs you were able to learn how to go and sign up for Flipgrid. So you can actually embed Flipgrid directly into your Topics Toolbox template, or you can go through and have them use a link. I like to do both, so it gives them a little bit of opportunities. Here's my Flipgrid link here, present. And then, of course, you have different videos that you can have them watch for YouTube. You can give a reflection question. So really, there's a lot of things that you can do with these resources. So this is an example. So let's go ahead and talk about then, why did I end up kind of going through and using this Topic Toolbox? We've touched on this a little bit, but why you may want to use that too. So kind of a key summary of those things. These are the really big problems and needs that led me to kind of find this resource and utilize it. So one was I ran into the problem of ineffective copying of content and digital resources from year to year. You previously mentioned that regarding assignments and not really finding it practical to import it from year to year. And so then having it all in a topic for downloaded resources, for handouts, for information, all kind of solves that issue. The other thing was I needed a place to have a cohesive portal for all the different digital tools, because I was sending my students in all different other places. And I also wanted them to have a place to then interact with those resources. I wanted them to take let's say the information that they went and learned in a Google Docs and apply that to a video, or look at then a new video and front load that for a conversation that we were going to have in class, but then a week later take that information and apply it to then a major assessment like a paper. So having an interactive place to organize those tools and those materials was really kind of a need that pushed me for that topic. Another problem that I found was then providing quick feedback, either for formative or summative assessments, and then great examples from year to year. So when I started teaching AP Literature, I didn't have a ton of personal assignments that my students had generated as examples, but now that I have a couple years in, I've started to find those resources, and I've been trying to think, what's the best way to give them some of these examples of papers or previous assignments or standards without photocopying all of this info from year to year, or giving them multiple assignments so they can go through and learn from those materials too. And so one of the ways that I found that would be to take those images or scan those documents or take templates and upload it there. So that was another kind of thing that evolved to the Feedback Studio. And then finally, a space to kind of highlight objectives, instructional goals, and then kind of the CISOs to really get them to synthesize and reflect on those things. And that cover brief kind of has helped bring that in and organize. So these are the problems and needs that really drove me to kind of go through and start using the topics for blended learning. Finally, let's talk a little bit about strengths and weaknesses. So Topics certainly is a tool, and tools all have specific functions. They can't do everything. So it is a good resource for creating a extension in the classroom through digital learning. It's a place where you can take what you do in the classroom that day and then have that extended over as part of kind of discussions or interaction tools. It also works really well for a flipped classroom model where I can go through and post up content. They can read through it, look through videos, go through and kind of engage with assignments, and then debrief or talk about their experiences within the classroom. So again, it's that great extension for blended learning. It's a great place to then organize digital tools, files, and interactions. That's that toolbox function. And it's meant to save time. After doing some of that work, you can copy it from year to year. Let's talk about some of the challenges that are a part of it. It's really impractical to edit it on the iPad. I found that unless you jump onto a desktop or a laptop where you have a mouse function, it's too challenging to use the drag and drop format to pull from that left-hand column and create kind of that interface and be able to use the touch screen function of an iPad. So that tablet component really isn't integrated, and I wouldn't suggest editing it from it. Thankfully, as far as viewing it from the student's perspective or even a preview, it works fine and there's no real issues there. So you shouldn't have a problem with your students being able to use it or interact with it. You also have limitations as far as different layout options. So I'm going to provide you a template that I've constructed to help facilitate this process for you. And there's very specific reasons why it has kind of one large section and then one small section. I'll kind of show you with this example here. But mostly that has to do with when you're embedding content or videos. Those videos are a little bit limited by that framework. And so having one giant space and then one smaller one where you can kind of go through and organize that information in a little bit more condensed form has worked well. And it does require a little bit of front loading. My biggest suggestion for you is don't try to do everything overnight. So the example that I showed you for the Hamlet unit, I did that over the course of my 3 to 4 weeks of teaching that unit. So I didn't feel like I needed to front load all of that information. What I would suggest is think about what is the information they need to know on day one. If you were going to go through and do it in a traditional format, face-to-face, let's say I was doing a PowerPoint presentation and I needed to give them a couple of handouts, that's the information I would make sure I put in on that day one. As you introduce new information, assign new kind of assessments, engage with new materials or digital resources, that's when you can slowly build it up. So you want to space out that time so it isn't really intimidating to get started. And then once you have that all kind of in for the year, you can use it again for next year and it'll save you time in the long run. So those are pretty much the kind of basic strengths and advantages and weaknesses and challenges with that. Here again, you can kind of see that format of large formatting on one side and smaller on the other. And then there's a couple more videos that I have access to that I'm sending out in this email or through kind of the playlist that you can go access things like how to import those templates and embedding Flipgrid. So if you want to do those things, that's it. So thank you so much for your patience. The video ran a little bit longer than I wanted, but please don't hesitate to kind of reach out if you got any questions about the Topic Toolbox. Thanks so much. Bye.